step now in chapter 6 where we are looking at this aspect and we're having to account for the selling of inventory. So we're adding, instead of just going and saying, oh, we have cash and we have revenue, now we have to account for, what about this? It is no longer just collecting cash and recording it as revenue. Now we have to account for the fact that we have to buy inventory and we have to sell the inventory in order to record something as revenue, which we will now be calling sales. All right, revenue and sales are the same thing, so don't get confused by them. It's just typically when we have a merchandise type company, we call it sales because we're selling something. When we have a service type company, we call it revenue because we're not selling a product, we're selling our own services. All right, so when you're looking at the income statement and the balance sheet of companies, typically, when you're looking at them, we got two different companies here. We got Walmart and we got Planet Fitness. So Planet Fitness is looking at a company that is selling a service. Notice they have supplies, but those supplies are looking at things that they're using in the store. So in a Planet Fitness, those might be just the items that they would help from a standpoint of doing what Planet Fitness does. When at Walmart, they call it inventory because they're going to turn around and sell it. Notice the dollar amount's usually going to be a little bit different also. All right. Then when you come down here, all you have is service revenue and expenses, where at Walmart, you have something called cost of goods sold. What that is it means that whenever you have sales revenue, yeah, we sold those items for, and I kind of wrote through it, $117 million, but it cost us $57 or $87 million to buy them. So we really only made $29 million. Cost of goods sold is the cost of the items that you bought. So we end up with this item, which you're going to get used to that name, gross profit. Gross profit is the most money we can make. So it cost us X amount to go buy the goods. We turned around and we sold it. Gross profit is the money that we made. So the balance sheets look very similar, and the companies like Walmart can still have supplies, right? It's just categorized and usually a lot less. So we now want to look at something called inventory. That's going to be we're going to use inventory in chapter 6 and chapter 7, the difference between periodic and perpetual inventory systems. All right. Now, we already talked about this, sales and the cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold is the total cost of the items we're buying, and subtracting them gives us gross profit. All right, so the difference between periodic and a perpetual inventory system. Periodic inventory system is an inventory system that you only know what's in it when you go and you count it. And the reason we call it periodic is because you only periodically know what's in it. Until you go and count it, you don't know. So when you're selling things, you're just writing them down and checking them off. And until you go out to the warehouse to check what's in there, you really have no idea what's left. Perpetual inventory system is you constantly know what's going on because you usually, in today's world, have a scanner. So most of the places you guys go into have a perpetual inventory system because they have barcode scanners. These became a lot more prevalent in the last 20 years because of computers. Before computers, there weren't a lot of perpetual inventory systems. So most companies use perpetual inventory systems and they know exactly what is in their ending inventory. So the diagram that you see on your screen now is very important, and we will use this in the next 2 chapters, and it's going to be something you want to write down for your test. Now, Adam asked earlier about your exam. Obviously, it is an exam that you are taking online where I'm not going to see you take it. It's on your honor in a lot of different ways, but I will tell you that you do not have enough time to look up every answer. If you were taking this in person or in a monitored environment, you would be allowed one piece of paper, all right? And you would put notes on that one piece of paper. Is how in the classroom when I give exams, you're allowed one piece of paper. And on that one piece of paper, I would encourage you to write down formulas and things that would be quick to jog your memory. And I encourage you to do that for this test also, because 2 things happen when you write things down on this one piece of paper. Number 1, you're studying, all right, because you're writing down notes and you're putting key points on this one piece of paper. And two, it's going to help you on the test because, like I said, you don't have time to look everything up. So if you create this one piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, that has key points from the chapters, then you're going to have most of what you need in order to complete the test. And on your honor system, you're not supposed to be looking it up anyways, right? But so most of what you're going to have is going to be right there. All right, so this is one of those items. Now, this page shows it to you in a graph form. The way that I would typically write it is I would say beginning inventory plus purchases gives you, and I always abbreviate this, cost of goods available for sale, which is that number right there. Beginning inventory plus purchases up here gives you cost of goods available for sale. Then subtract, and you can subtract either one. You could subtract cost of goods sold or ending inventory. It doesn't matter. Cost of goods sold gives you ending inventory. So in a periodic inventory system, in a perpetual inventory system, I would know cost of goods sold because I'm constantly counting it. So cost of goods sold is subtracted from cost of goods available for sale, and it gives me ending inventory. If I were running a perpetual, I just said them backwards again, periodic inventory system, I would not know cost of goods sold. So I'd have to go out and I'd have to count my ending inventory, and then I would plug that in. I would switch these last two around. I would take cost of goods available for sale, subtract ending inventory, and then I would get cost of goods sold. So no matter what, as long as you have 3 of these items, you can always get the other 2. All right. Usually the 3 you have are beginning inventory plus purchases, and you get cost of goods available for sale, and you're usually calculating to get cost of goods sold or ending inventory. So I suggest that you make sure you know this. Usually with the problems we're working, it's better if you have it in that vertical format because you're going to be doing calculations. That is my suggestion.
Could you go to the previous slide real quick?
The previous slide, yes, I can. This one?
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I got this down.
And I will be writing that down again. You got it? Or are you writing something down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
All right. So then notice on the bottom, this is my one thing that I don't like regarding this, and this happens in your book too. It writes it out real nicely up here, includes all 5 of the pieces, the same things that I just wrote on the left. But then when it writes it out down below, it leaves out cost of goods available for sale. Now, some of you guys that are really good in math, you're fine. You don't need that. But sometimes those not as good in math or having a hard time seeing the whole picture, when you leave that out right here, sometimes you have a hard time plugging to get that number. So I suggest you write out the whole formula like I just had it written, taking these 2 items, getting cost of goods available for sale, and then subtracting either ending inventory or cost of goods sold, depending on which one you have. All right. Now the next, I skipped it. The next 2 slides just talk about the inventory systems, which we did. Periodic inventory system, again, is just when we don't have the ability to update it, and this is its formula. You subtract ending inventory because we know what that is once we go count it. And then a perpetual inventory system is when things are being added up on a regular basis. Now, what happens when we go out and we count and we find out things aren't right? Now, just because we are running a perpetual inventory system, just because we're running a perpetual inventory system does not mean that we don't have to count, all right? So even in a perpetual inventory system, even when you're at all these Home Depots and Lowe's and Target, you still have to go out and you have to count. So in a periodic system, you might be counting monthly, right? You might be counting daily. Small companies that don't have the ability to put in some type of scanning, or the one that I can think of is like a big nursery that grows plants. they don't necessarily have the scanning. They don't know what's there. If you want to ask them if they have a certain tree, they might tell you, walk with me and let's go check out and see if they have any left. So they are going to be counting on a much more regular basis. But regardless, it's hard to check and see what they call shrinkage. Shrinkage is due to theft, it's due to damage, and it's due to things being misplaced. So both types of inventory systems have this. It's hard to estimate it when you don't know what you should have there in the first place. But both types of inventories have that type of thing. Neither one are going to end up with a perfect inventory. And so when you have theft, when you have things that are damaged, when you have things that are misplaced, then it's going to be a loss on inventory, regardless of whichever inventory that you have. Okay. Now, and then the other thing, because we might be working a problem on this, your book isn't that great at talking about it, is something called consignment. So consignment is when one company will take its goods to another company so that they will sell those goods for them, okay? So when the one company takes those goods to them, they are holding those goods for them for the whole purpose that they sell them. And if they don't sell them, they will return that inventory back to the original company. Now, if I ask you, who do you think owns the inventory? So company A has inventory that it gives to company B. Company B is going to sell it for them. If they don't sell it, they're going to give it back to company A. Whose inventory should it be included in? What do you think? There's two different ways to transport it. So now you get to see my pretty diagram. All right. So I have a warehouse, and this is the seller, and this is the buyer. All right. And then we have two different ways of shipping. We have one that's called FOB, shipping point. Does anybody know what FOB stands for? It's abbreviation. If I did it right, I would have dots.
Forward operating base.
Oh, that's a pretty good guess. It's not right, but that's a pretty good guess.
No, I know it's not right.
I gotta spell right. Destination. Okay. It's freight on board. Right? So FOB shipping, FOB destination is freight on board. Okay. So FOB shipping point says that if I have my little truck, and this is my truck. It's a 18-wheeler that only has 6 wheels, okay? If I have my truck, as soon as it leaves the shipping dock, it becomes the responsibility of the buyer. So shipping point means as soon as it leaves the shipping point, it becomes the responsibility of the buyer, all right? So it's the buyer's responsibility. FOB destination says that it is the responsibility of the shipper until it reaches the destination. All right. So FOB shipping point, that inventory, that whatever is in that shipment becomes the responsibility of the buyer as soon as it leaves the dock. FOB destination says that is still the inventory and responsibility of the shipper until it reaches the buyer. So if this little truck blew up right here, then it's the shipper's responsibility. All right? So it's a responsibility of the shipper for destination. It's a responsibility of the buyer for shipping point. Now, let's go get your working papers and let's look at the first item is M63. So it's on the very first page of your working papers.